Hello and welcome to our channel, Marsh, your public performance broadcast platform. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. You can also donate to our tip jar and support the arts and artist of Marsh by clicking the link below in the description. Check out our website, themarsh.org, for all upcoming live performances. Now, enjoy the show.
And now let's welcome your host for Solo Arts Heal, Kristen Shiel.
Thank you, Brianna, and thank you for joining us for Solo Arts Heal. My name is Kristen Shiel, and I will be your host this evening as we welcome Bay Area performer Laura Jane Bailey with excerpts of The Paris Effect. Solo Arts Heal is a weekly Marshstream public broadcast platform program presenting empowering performances about healing and resilience. Tonight, we will meet Laura Jane Bailey, a Bay Area actress originally from Chicago. Local productions include The Roommate at Capitol Stage, Luna Gale and Mud Blue Sky at Aurora Theater, Crime of the Heart at Theatreworks, Man of MANCHA at SFPLayhouse, EQUUS at Boxcar Theater, and Fiction, LAISIONS, DANGEREUSES, Bad Dates and Smell of the Kill at Dragon Productions Theater. Of her performance in Les Liaisons, the Mercury News said, an arched eyebrow, a slight curl of the lip, or a smarmy smile and eye roll, let the audience know it's getting a full frontal assault of talent. Laura Jane performed the full version of The Paris Effect at the inaugural Marsh International Solo Festival last fall. Before we meet Laura Jane, we're going to talk a little bit about The Paris Effect, which is a show that I've come to love. Through these excerpts, I've been able to see on the Marsh stream. It's a story of a young woman falling in love with Paris, and the course that this love affair takes from a tender age of 21 to later in life, bringing her husband to Paris to show him the city of lights. Paris, baguettes, the Eiffel Tower, espressos on the Champs-Élysées, Monet, but that is not what Paris had in mind.
48 hours later, we are smack dab in the center of Paris, France. Well, or rather, I am. My brother is upstairs in the hotel room, sleeping off all that wine and cheese, but I can't sleep because Paris is just so je ne sais quoi. Our hotel is right on the river, so instead of going to bed, I leave the hotel and go across the street to the river alone. There are still lots of people on the riverbank at midnight. Lovers meeting up. Ooh, lovers breaking up. Kids getting high. Old men and old women just sitting on their banks, watching the river roll on by. I look up at the city of lights and think that maybe for the first time in my life, nobody knows where I am. She came out of nowhere. She just appeared. Who are you? I look around to where the voice came from, and there she stood, wearing a pair of high-waisted men's trousers and suspenders and a linen, white, crisp shirt, giant yellow hoop earrings, and of course a black beret. She was the epitome of 80s cool. Pardon me? I asked, who are you? Oh, you speak English. Looking around just to make sure she was actually talking to me. I speak whatever you want me to speak. Qui êtes-vous? Wait, no, I know this one. Je m'appelle Laura Jane. I have no doubt. But who are you? Wow, she just cuts right to it, right? Right to the deep stuff. No time for chit-chat. I don't really know what you mean. I felt like all the air was leaving my body. I had this sense of love at first sight and stranger danger. I certainly started to sweat, and maybe I start to hyperventilate. I said, I don't know what that means. She then takes an unlit cigarette out of her pack and hands it to me. Oh, no, thank you very much. I don't smoke. Or rather, I rarely smoke. I don't want to smell like smoke when I see my brother later. Oh, so you are a good girl, no? Was she flirting with me? I don't know, maybe. What makes a good girl? She adjusted her beret with her cigarette smoking hand, and she just stood there, staring at me, her eyes smoldering. She was definitely flirting with me. Do you know what I think? I think a good girl does what everybody wants her to do, and a bad girl does whatever she wants. I am definitely nervous, and she is definitely flirting with me, but also teasing and maybe a little threatening. I should turn and break her gaze. I should just turn and run. I should have never left the hotel room, because at this moment, she is either going to kiss me or stab me. Instead, she takes a fresh cigarette out of her mouth, lights it, turns it around, puts it in my mouth, and I take a deep drag. Oh, now this is part of the show where I should probably tell you that smoking is bad for you. Do not smoke. But this was the 1980s, and everybody smoked. I remember all of us smoking big, fat drags of Virginia Slim menthol lights while slamming down a Long Island iced tea. But this French cigarette, oh, it was something different altogether. It was smooth and sweet and utterly delicious. How was that, good girl? It's very nice. Thank you very much. We stood there and stared at each other for a while. She wouldn't take her eyes off of me, and I wouldn't take my eyes off of her. Finally, well, who are you? Always the Midwest nice girl. You don't know who I am? Oh, no, I'm sorry, I don't. Well, good girl, I am Paris. Wow, we are in the city of Paris, and your name is Paris. No. I am the city.
I love that Paris as a character.
Yeah, she's crazy and a little mean.
I kind of imagine her watching the rest of your play when you set it up. She's just back in the cafe with her cigarette, watching it all unfold.
Oh, she is 100% around all the time. For sure.
Does she appear at any other time in your piece, or is this just part of the frame story?
No, she does. She definitely appears. She after this scene, she takes me on this whirlwind tour of Paris where we drink champagne all night and I fall in love with her. She falls in love with me, but I have to go because I have to meet my brother for a 6 a.m. plane or a train. And she gets really mad at me. Like she can't believe that I would leave her for my brother. And so she threatens me and she tells me she's going to haunt me. So the rest of my life, when I come back to the United States, she is haunting me.
And the jealousy is kind of an interesting part of it too. The jealousy of your brother, and then you're bringing your husband in. I'm kind of wondering how much of this ominous Paris did you share with your husband, Bob, before you bought tickets?
Oh, none of it. I mean, I didn't know she was horrible until we went on this trip. In real life, I have always been a Francophile and just a fan of all things French. And, you know, I've shared a little bit with him, but he's his family is German, so we've gone to Germany a lot, and I've fallen in love with Berlin and Vienna. And so we never went to Paris. And so finally I said, I would really like to show you um, London and Paris. And he bit and said, okay, let's go.
And it turned out very differently than you had planned.
Right.
I gather, and that's where the story goes. And I think it's important the way you set the story up for this great romantic fail with this first excerpt you've shared.
Right.
So we're going to get into the second excerpt soon.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else about the setup of the next piece that you'd like to share?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Bob, my husband Bob, and I met and got married in midlife. So that's sort of, I had an earlier marriage, so I can compare. That's a different kind of marriage. And, you kind of forget all the BS and you're like, whatever, I love this person and this person loves me and we're going to have a happy ever after fairy tale marriage.
Right.
And so a lot of the story, not a lot of the story, some of the story is our love story. So first I tell my love story with Paris, then I tell my love story with my husband, and then I get this great idea. I'm going to introduce him. We are going to have like a middle-aged menage a trois. Her loving me loving him loving her. It was going to be a great idea. What could go wrong, right? So then we went. And we started out in London, and it was fine, having a good time, going to see theater and museums and doing the whole tourist thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then things went really, really wrong. Yeah.
Well, it might be a good point to start to launch in.
Okay. Let me just set a little bit up. I confessed to him that I am in love with Paris. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't quite understand that. He's like, well, I really like Hamburg, but I'm not in love with it. And I was trying to explain, no, this is a big part of who I am. Why do you think I can't watch the Tour de France with you? Why do we never go to French restaurants? It's because she is there haunting me, and I can't handle it.
Were you on the plane when you shared this, or was?
I shared it on our wedding night. So yeah, a confession, a secret love confession on a wedding night. So that's.
So low stakes.
Yeah, low stakes, right? So then I'll launch in. So it took us 7 years, but finally we are standing in line at the St. Pancras train station in London. My incredibly kind and loving husband is in a foul mood, a real rarity. His legs have been hurting all day and his back is aching. Walking around is the only thing that makes him feel better. So we're walking around in circles while waiting for our train to Paris. Oh, sitting for 2 hours and 20 minutes is going to be excruciating, Laura Jane. I don't say anything. We are now on our way to Paris, and he needs to be in top form. He is meeting the other love of my life. He's going to need strength and endurance, as well as sparkling conversation and a healthy appetite. I mean, those croissants are not going to eat themselves. Bob is unable to get comfortable on the train. For the entire train ride, he is wiggly and sweaty. And Europe is having a heat wave, but the train is air-conditioned. I guess I'm going to have to carry all the luggage now. And of course, I overpacked. I mean, what am I supposed to wear when we meet her? I gotta look cute. It's been over 30 years. Our hotel is perfectly Parisian. Our first meal in Paris, delicious. We buy a box of macarons and go back to the hotel and make up. Good morning, honey. How'd you sleep? I give him a kiss. Today, he is going to fall in love with Paris and everything will be better. She knows we're coming, so surely she's going to be at one of the big tourist spots. And we hit them all. And a couple of times, I think I caught a glimpse of her. We return to the hotel, and Bob climbs into bed. Do I have a fever? I don't know. Maybe. Hey, I got a great idea. How about tomorrow we go get massages? In the basement of an old building, we climb down into the catacombs of Paris for our massage. Oh, she will definitely be here. At lunch at the cafe later, I ask, well, how was it? Expecting I feel so much better. But he doesn't say that. I am running out of patience with both of them, Bob and Paris. After a long day of shopping, we're at the post office sending home our packages. At this moment, I am properly pissed. She hasn't shown up this entire week, and he isn't falling in love with her, and this whole idea of a meeting is a bust. Madame, he will have to sign for the credit card. Bob is sitting on the other side of the post office. They need you to sign for the card. Oh, God, you do it. I can't. It's your card. So Bob gets up and walks across to the counter. I watch him sign for the credit card. Or try to sign for the credit card. It just comes out in scribbles. Honey, what's wrong with you? I don't know. I just feel different. Weird. I think I need a doctor. First, there was a visit from the hotel doctor. Then a second visit. Then he gets so weak he falls and breaks his ankle. So off to the emergency room we go. His body aches. He's weak. He can't move his toes. His hands hurt. He has a fever. He can't produce a urine sample or stand on his own. Qui est l'homme mystère? Apparently, he's a fascinating puzzle for these French doctors. Tests for infections, MRI, X-rays, CAT scans, 3 spinal taps. Day 4 in the hospital. Bob is conscious but starts to become very confused. Hand tremors start and he continues to weaken until eventually I'm feeding him. His fever spikes to 40. Dr. Montecito of the ICU explains to us that Bob has Guillain-Barre syndrome. Your body will become paralyzed from the bottom to the top. Then the paralysis will recede as it recovers. Maybe. Most of the time. Every word he is saying is like he's giving birth to the English language. He wants to make sure we understand every word he is saying, but every word he is saying is crazy. How do we stop this? How did he get it? How long will this take? Should we fly back to the United States and get treatment? What is causing those high fevers? Should I have brought him in earlier? My questions are met with silence and then My own research about Guillain-Barre syndrome gives me only enough information to ask more questions. And the doctors have very few answers. In fact, they rarely answer me or even speak to me, just a... Day 10. Oh, we must intubate him. His respiratory system is failing. We must have your consent. And he shoves a piece of paper in front of me. I freeze. It is now or never. I sign the form. Bob tells me he loves me. He kisses me, and down goes the tube. Day 15. Dr. Montecito! I'm running down the hall to catch him. Wikipedia doesn't say anything about GBS patients having a fever. Why can't we get his fever down? Why is he hallucinating? Does he understand what is happening? I have to tell him every day that he is in a hospital in Paris and not back home in San Carlos, California. The website doesn't mention anything about his brain being affected by Guillain-Barre. Madame Young, that is due to the encephalitis. The what? The infection around his brain that is caused by the underlying infection that triggered the GBS. What infection? Well, we are working to determine what infection. It is not an easy process. We have ruled out many, many things, but we have to send his blood for more tests. It takes time to build cultures. And he turns to leave. I stand there, dumbfounded. Encephalitis. That's bad. And then Dr. Montecito turns around and says, Madame Young, in San Carlos, California, do you have mosquitoes with West Nile? I don't know. Day 22. I am summoned to the office of the head of medicine and infectious disease specialist. His name is Dr. Quint, Q-U-I-N-T. I make a very strong effort to pronounce it correctly every time I see him, and every time I do, I get a slight smile. Bonjour, Dr. Quint. Bonjour. Please sit down, Madame Young. No smile. Would you like something to drink? No, thank you. Madame Young, your husband does have West Nile fever. That is the inciting infection. And that is what has caused the meningoencephalitis. All of this is very, very rare. Your husband is a very sick man. Time stops. All the air in the room leaves. Well, how do you treat it? There is no treatment. We wait and support him and see what happens. Is he going to die? We do not know. This is the first time since I have been in France that someone has said the words, "We do not know." And when Dr. Quint says it, it feels like code. I search his face for answers, and then his eyes go soft, and he looks away. And I know Bob is very most likely not going to survive. The doctor and I look at each other for a very long time, and then he says, "Do you know anyone in Paris who can come and be with you?" No. I'm all alone. And then I burst out crying. And Dr. Quint lets me, surprisingly. And I cry for a very, very long time. And then finally he says, "Madame Young, you must have courage." Many French doctors have told me to have courage. Maybe all of them. Bon courage, Madame Young, every day since I've been here. I don't think that means the same thing in French as it does in English. In English, it means to be brave, to buck up, keep your chin up. What do you mean when you say it to me? It means you must have hope. Hope. And then I cry some more, because I know there is no hope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura Jane. And this is a good time to remind our audience of the tip jar, which is linked in the chat. We're going to have some time to ask questions, and we also welcome you to ask any questions about this experience, the process of playwriting and performance, and post them in the chat, and the producers will share that with us. I think that the last thing that I would want to be in a foreign hospital is a fascinating puzzle.
Yeah, right. Right. But boy, they were and it was in the emergency room where that all started to kind of come together. And they were very lighthearted and like, well, this is fun for us. We'll go investigate. We're going to take all these tests. And Bob was, cognizant at that point. We would look at each other and be like, what is going on? You broke your ankle and you're weak. What's happening? And then
you've compressed the diagnosis into these few minutes of the play, but how long was it between that emergency room visit to unpack the West Nile and the meningoencephalitis and the Guillain-Barre?
They knew it was meningoencephalitis. They knew that first. Mm-hmm. And they were concerned, well, they said meningitis. They were concerned that maybe it was contagious, but I hadn't, I was fine. So they kind of were ruling that out, but not 100%. And then they did the spinal taps, and that was about around day 4 or 5 where they decided to do the spinal taps. And I do remember the hotel doctor, he did like a urine test and to see if there was some sort of infection, but then he touched his toes and asked Bob some questions about his toes. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. But that was him testing for Guillain-Barre. So the doctors kind of had that in their mind. But I do remember they did the spinal tap. And this one doctor, the neurologist who came back, he literally had it in his hand. And he walks out of Bob's hospital room, and I'm standing out there shaking and like, whoa, I don't know what's going on. And he walks by me and he kind of like does this with the tube, and he goes, not good. I don't know what to do with that, right? He did not speak a lot of English, and he didn't talk to me a lot. Most things went through another doctor to talk to me, but yeah, so it took a really long time to get the West Nile diagnosis.
Is the spinal tap used for that diagnosis in particular, or is
spinal tap is used for Guillain-Barre?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a blood test for the West Nile, but they had to send it off to a special lab.
You told me that he was in a coma, medically induced coma for 8 weeks. At what I guess I'm really interested in when did you know he was not getting worse? I mean, the kind of.
I didn't know he was not getting worse until we got back to the United States.
Oh.
So they put him, they sedated him for pain from the nerve damage that Guillain-Barre was having, and so that he wouldn't pull the trach out. Which he might not have, but because he couldn't move at that point. But that was sort of their protocol, was to keep him just a little under all the time.
At what point did he go under? I mean, how far into this? And then do you remember, were you with him when that happened?
Yeah. Well, they put him under for the trach, of course. So he didn't speak to me after that. But around 7 days in, I came in one morning early, and he was just red and sweating, and he wasn't really making sense. And I said, good morning, hi, how did you sleep? And he looked up and he said, oh, great, another day of being in 2 places at the same time, which was so bizarre. And I've come to find out that was because he had started to hallucinate, either from the West Nile or the medicine they were giving him, or the encephalitis, who knows. But he was kind of gone after that.
One of the things we talked about was the different kinds of correspondence and communication that you were going through in before you even started writing this play, and that writing this was a way to kind of fill in the gaps. Can you talk a little bit about writing, about what it was like to report back from France on this experience?
Yeah, it ended up, it was interesting to look back on how I did that and think, yeah, I did that right. So I would send back sort of missives to the United States, to my family and some very close friends, to say, hey, this is what's going on. And we didn't know for a really long time. So a lot of those emails were, we don't know, but we have the best doctors on it. We feel really good about this. And I was trying to like just turn it up a little to hope. But that was really hard. Writing those were really hard because I didn't want people that far away to be worrying about him or worrying about me. I wanted them to think, I got this, we're good. Now, I didn't, and my brother knew that and flew over to be with me eventually, and then a couple of other friends came to Paris to be with me later. But so anyway, that's a sidebar. So why I started writing it was we came back, Bob goes into recovery, we're working towards his health coming back, and people started asking me, well, how was it for you? And I had no answer for them. The social workers at the hospital and nurses would ask me, and I would just burst out into tears. I can't talk about it. I don't know. It was awful, but it's not about me. It's about him. So about a year in, I went to David Ford and I said, hey, I think I gotta write this to sort of explain to people what was going on with me, and to explain or to let them in on that incredible loneliness and that incredible fear and this true adventure that both of us had been on, and thank God came out on the other side. But it was so close. It could have gone the other way.
It feels like there's a character of caregiving in your correspondence with people who couldn't be there to help themselves. So it is a lot of output and not a lot of self-care going on. What were you doing? Were you sleeping at the hospital, or were you?
No, they wouldn't let me. We had a great hotel downtown, and 2 days into his hospital, I realized I can't stay here for however long this is going to take. It's too far away, and B, it's really expensive. So there's a little town sort of in Paris called New Louis Sucien, which is where it's where the Ile de Jat is. So it's where Seurat painted, and it's where the American Hospital of Paris is, and that's where he was. And so I got a little hotel there, like a family-owned place. And once he was in ICU, they don't let family or anybody in until 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Like hard and fast rule. There is no exception. And so I had all these hours in the day to take care of myself, and it was so funny because everybody kept saying, well, what are you doing to take care of yourself? Make sure you're taking care of yourself. And I didn't know. I didn't know. I was like, well, I'm drinking water. That's about as far as I can go right now. And I'm sleeping, and I'm laying in bed resting, because I couldn't sleep. But the rest of the time I was sitting by his bedside, watching him breathe, looking at his hand. I remember looking at his hands and his fingers for hours, just waiting for something to like move. And they didn't until we got back to the United States, because that's, I was waiting for that nerve recovery to come back from Guillain-Barre.
Well, we were talking about the hospital and the doctors responding or being grateful for or gladdened by different signs of improvement. But you had a moment, or you had moments, or a process of seeing him there again, knowing that Bob is Bob. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was terrific. In the play, I talk about our escape from Paris, and he got a medical flight because we bought travel insurance. So here's my commercial for that. Always buy the travel insurance. It took a long time and it was terribly complicated, but he flew back to San Carlos. I had to fly commercial back. We met up in the Sequoia Hospital in Redwood City, and he's still on the vent and he's still kind of under. And the next day, I went home, I fell asleep. The next day, the ICU doctor called me and she said, okay, this is really bad, but they've over-medicated him, so we're bringing him out. And they listed all the things that were going on with him, but we think we think the French doctors have treated him appropriately. But I want you to go see a doctor, which was so lovely that this ICU doctor was taking care of me. Anyway, you asked a different question. So I would go back to Sequoia every day, all day. And about day 3 or 4, he started to come around. He was still paralyzed and he was still on the vent and he was still kind of drugged, but the encephalitis had gone, the West Nile fever had broken, and they put something called a passamere on his vent, and it's a way that people on ventilators can speak, and it was invented by Superman, Christopher Reeves. That foundation invented this. And so Bob, while I was away for an hour, learned how to use this. His PT learned how to use this. And I remember going in and him speaking sort of through this passamere to me. Hi, honey. And then I realized, oh yeah, you are there. And every day he got clearer and clearer and clearer until finally it was Bob. And I realized, great, there's no brain damage. Terrific. Now let's work on the physical recovery.
Right. And can you talk a little bit about Guillain-Barre and how rare it is, and and how different it is, how it compares to MS? I mean, we just had a show with someone who had been diagnosed with MS, and they described this nerve change and damage, and it's almost as if it's the reverse. Can you describe that?
Well, it's the same in that it's your body. It's an autoimmune disease, so it's your body eating away the myelin around your nerve, that sheath, that protective sheath that the actual electricity rides on. So and it will eat at different points in the nerve. It usually starts at the feet and the hands and kind of works its way in. But the difference between that and MS is that our bodies with Guillain-Barre regenerate that myelin. So your nerves do come back. Now, he had wasted a lot being in a coma for 2 months. So a lot of, his muscle had gone away. So he had to build up strength and that sort of thing. But yeah, Guillain-Barre is a weird disease and it's super rare. 1 in every 100,000. That's the number they throw out. However, when we tell people, oh, Bob had Guillain-Barre, it's without fail. Like people say, oh yeah, my grandma had that. Or, oh, I knew this guy at work who had it. So it's kind of out there, but anyway, yeah, it's 1 in 100,000. And they say that 90% of the people who have it get full recovery. And that we have not found to be true with anyone we know who had this. It's never really a full recovery. The nerves in the toes or the ankles, drop foot happens and doesn't come back, or, pain, neuropathy, that sort of thing.
Right. And the West Nile is sort of alive and circulating, but I looked at the site that you shared with me from Sacramento of the incidence of West Nile there, and it looks like we're at 0 so far this year. Mm-hmm. What happens when you travel internationally and you can't identify the source of your infection?
Really interesting. We tried to figure it out with the timeline, and 2.5, 3 years later, we think it happened in London. But the CDC kept contacting me when we got back because somebody had to own that bite. You know, was it Paris? Was it London? Was it San Carlos? And I could never give them an answer. So that one never got tallied. And there are very few. That year there were like 8 in the peninsula where we live.
Mm-hmm. And what kinds? I guess it's almost time to bring Bob into the picture, because I have some questions about recovery and what it's like to be the subject of your solo play.
Right. He's coming in just a moment. Yeah.
You shared, one of the links that you shared was the Compassion Institute, an adaptive physical education program. I'd really like to know more about that. In particular, where, is that something that you've been accessing at home?
Yeah, I gave her the Redwood City.
Oh, and welcome. This is Bob Young, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Bob.
Hi. Yeah, well, the adaptive PE program that I participate in is part of the seniors. Well, I don't know. I guess I could say it's an association with the Senior Center in Redwood City. And I don't know how much you want to know about it, but it was initially started at the Kenyatta College years ago, and then things happened, and then that sort of broke off, and then the person who started it, Barbara and Scott, who are really the trained or learned about adaptive PE. They carried it on here at Redwood City at the Senior Center, the Veteran Senior Center. And so it's been going on now for quite some time.
How did you find it?
Well, so when we got back from Alta Bates rehab, and then we had in-house rehab, people came here, and it was called an excellent outfit called Rehab Without Walls. And my physical therapist for that, he one of the first things he had me do was begin adaptive physical education. And he said, well, you got 2 choices around here. It's either maybe College of San Mateo or Redwood City. And he thought that I would be a better match in Redwood City. So that's how I found out about it.
And he was still in a wheelchair at that point. So he was going to adaptive PE in the wheelchair, and all of their machines were, adapted. So,
right. I'm curious about the process of recovery. I have a friend whose mother had a stroke, and she's gradually recovering certain things and then learning to live with different adaptations and different conditions that might not go away. How was that process for you? How did and when did they introduce different are you still on a path to 100% recovery? How does it look from where you sit?
Well, that's a little bit of a complicated question to answer. But just looking at that, just taking into account from my, as I recall, my recovery with just the GBS, it's slow. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know, sort of the symbol or the mascot for GBS is a turtle. It just takes a long time. And I don't know, they give you these statistics on how long it takes for the myelin to regenerate and your nerves to recover. And, and those are kind of hard to understand. But it just takes a long time. And everybody, from what I can understand, or at least from my experience, I think I've done pretty well. I don't know, to deviate, but I remember being in Kentfield, the first rehab facility, and I didn't really understand what GBS was. I just figured, well, it's something I'm going to get better from. And they kept throwing out this 8-month period. You should recover in 8 months. And I thought, well, okay, that's nothing. Well, 8 months come and go, and I'm not fully recovered. Like Laura Jane says, I can't walk yet. I'm using I'm primarily getting around in the wheelchair. And then,
well, not now. At that point.
Well, at that point, yeah. I mean, that's 2 years ago. So, but then I'm noticing things about me that's changing. I'm getting more feeling in the, my lower legs, and then in my hands. My hands would be numb, but I'd get feeling that's recovered. So a lot of it just takes time. And, like Laura Jane was saying, that the feet seem to be the last thing that, if they're going to recover, that's the last thing. So I still, I don't have a lot of feeling in my toes or my feet. And then my ankles, I don't have really good dorsiflexion or plantar flexion. So I have to, one way of adapting to that is with braces. So AFOs is the technical term for them. But yeah, so that's that.
What was it like for you to hear about the time when you were in the coma? When Laura Jane was sharing about that and then writing about it. You mentioned hallucinations that you had during the coma. Are those memorable?
Well, yes. Oh, yeah. The hallucination. I mean, they're not quite as vivid, right? Today, but I still remember them, and certainly my time, after we got back, and I'm at Kentfield and recovering, and I'm still. These are just coming to my mind, and they just seem very vivid. And I can't say when I was having them, but obviously it was sometime during my stay at the hospital in Paris and Sequoia. It's just really kind of strange about that. And I don't know, I was thinking about it today. I thought, well, I guess your question about Laura Jane writing about it, I mean, it's always interesting for me to hear it again, and because I was there, and I guess, and I was present there, but I don't remember anything about it. So the thought came to me. I thought, we were together, and yet we were both alone. Yep. I just just for Laura Jane to be there by herself, and what she went through and had to, everything that she had to deal with, and then I'm off of my own world. I'm alone. Pretty much all my hallucinations, I'm alone, and I don't know. I mean, there are people around at times, but I'm pretty much by myself, and I'm always looking for Laura Jane. I don't know where she's at, and I don't know where I'm going to stay that night. So.
It's interesting that it kind of froze you in that travel bubble, the idea that you were alone together, that might persist for the length of your stay. That's interesting. And then my question for you is, would you go back to Paris?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Tell me some of the things you'd like to do when you get back there.
Well, I want to go back. I mean, I want to go to New Louis. I have to see that. I have to see the hospital, and just everything that Laura Jane's told me about New Louis, and pictures she shares with me and things. And I just think, oh, yeah, we got to finish that vacation. We didn't get to finish it, so.
I think it would be great for him to meet the doctors and to see the hospital, because it's the American hospital in Paris, but it's not funded by America and it's not funded by France. It's a completely private operation now, and so it's really international. So all the other patients in the ICU were there was a family from Jordan, someone from Gabon. It's this crazy, not American hospital.
So what is next for this show?
For this show,
Mhm.
I I was just starting to perform it when we went into lockdown last year. So I'm trying to find places to do it online. Hopefully I'll be able to do it live in a couple of months, but I'm doing it in a solo festival next weekend called the Unexpected Solo Fest, and it's for storytellers from the Marsh who came through the Marsh, and David Ford has dramaturged all of them. Brian Copeland and Lambeth Sterling and Anna Marie McLeod will be performing as well.
I read an article an interview that you gave in the Chronicle, and you had a quote that I thought was so funny. It was like, "Who's going to watch a story about doom?"
Yeah, it was really, it was at the beginning of COVID, and we were all very worried about ventilators, and I knew that putting people on ventilators, because I'd been through it with him, is a very serious thing. It's not you just put it on for a couple of days and then take it out. It's really serious. And I thought, well, who's going to want to watch that? But turns out people kind of want to hear about that medical catastrophe when we're in a medical catastrophe.
And when you look back on that 21-year-old in Paris, any advice for her?
No, absolutely not. It's funny. Oh God, it makes me cry. It's so funny that I just noticed the bookend of that, where I had my first Parisian experience with my brother, and then he also came at the end too. So I don't know, that keep your family and your friends close. That would be the advice.
That's so funny. We have a couple comments from Charles Riggs in the chat. Ménage à toi à la Paris, clever conceit. And you will always have Paris, and that is for sure. That perhaps not your husband. Well, half a loaf. C'est la vie.
Yeah, it's you'll always have Paris thing is so funny, because people who love Paris and believe it's their own city, like it's their private relationship. I feel that exactly the same way. Paris and I know you all love Paris too, but she is really with me.
When I was looking up the Paris effect, wondering if that was a thing, I saw a thing, which is Paris syndrome, which apparently is I guess reported by tourists who find a great disconnect between the Paris that they imagined and the Paris that they experience.
Yep.
So it is a real thing.
Yeah, but it's so interesting when you realize, no, Paris is actually real. These people that I met, these people who saved my husband's life, they were real people, and I was one of them for 2 months.
Yeah, you did. You have a real Parisian story to tell.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, and is there anything else that you want to share? Any of the other resources that you named? Thanks to Brian and Brianna for posting them in the chat. We have information about Guillain-Barre syndrome, West Nile and mosquito abatement program information. And then this wonderful adapted physical education for recovery in the Bay Area, which I learned was linked to the Stanford program, this Compassion Institute, which now I'm very curious to learn more about. And also if there's a place for solo performance within those programs, either to see a play like yours or to write one.
Yeah.
This process has obviously been therapeutic.
100%. I think for both of us, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to speak for you.
Okay.
Comment from Terry in the chat. Thank you, MJ. Fabulous performance and so beautiful.
Thank you, Terry.
Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you, Bob, for being willing to share the spotlight there. We're excited to could you say again where your performance will be at the end later this month?
Yeah, it's going to be online at thestreamingtheater.com. I think it's in there. It's going to be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and each performer gets to do their show twice. So if you miss the first one, tune in for the second. And it operates the same way with a tip jar. So come on in for free and throw a couple bucks at a performer.